The Iron Age is here. I had the great pleasure of reading this book a long time before it came out, and it is phenomenal. This is The Black Crown by John A. Douglas. Now, for anyone who knows, John A. Douglas is a phenomenal writer and YouTuber, but also a proud advocate for the Iron Age, and a writer with a unique voice and a unique talent for storytelling. So, I am not going to go too much into the story, because I want you to read it for yourself. But all I will say, in the dying days of the Age of Adventure and the Orc Wars have ended. And I think that basically sets up nicely. It's a coming-of-age, epic fantasy with plenty of action, adventure, political intrigue, dragons, and most of all, orcs. He has a way of telling a story. He has a way of creating a compelling story, and that is a unique talent. So, where do we start? He has a unique ability to create characters that are not only relatable, they don't feel forced. They feel like characters that would exist. The characters are well-rounded and well-written, and even the smaller background characters have their own distinct personalities. He also has a way of world-building, creating a strong and compelling world in this beautiful, rich fantasy landscape. The world building for me in fantasy is such an important thing, and the links between fantasy and world building are so important. And that is something that rarely happens. Many modern fantasy novels tend to be the fantasy world as a skin to tell a coming-of-age story, where the world and the characters are so interlinked, and the intrigue between them is fascinating. He also has a way of creating not just strong characters, but the characters just pull you in. They genuinely do, on a level that I was surprised. Every character gives you something. You come out of reading them and you feel connected to them. The good, the bad, not every character is likable, not every character makes you fall in love with them, but it works, and that's important. Life is shades of grey, and very much his characters fulfill that. There is no such thing as defined good or evil, but everything falls within that grey. Some greys are darker than others. Some greys are pure white. So let's talk about that one. They are compelling, and it's a refreshing read, especially in fantasy where it can be bogged down by its own tropes. And that's something else that he does. He takes the tropes, he takes what could be a fantasy that tropes are a thing within fantasy. He takes those tropes and he rips them apart and turns them on their head and uses them in such an intelligent way. I can't wait to read more from him, and I read this entire book, the original, slightly proof copy, I'll use the word proof, unedited proof, of this in a weekend, and there is no way around that. I literally inhaled it, and I was not disappointed. Fantasy is one of my favorite genres, and I think that when a book ticks those boxes for me, it's extremely rare, to say the least, on the subject. I've read a lot of really bad fantasy. I've read a lot of very generic fantasy, and I've read a lot of fantasy that feels like it's trying so hard to be Lord of the Rings or The Wheel of Time, or emulating other popular fantasy series. This one takes that formula and completely does something new with it, and it's phenomenal. It's a surprise in that sense. The characters, the world, the settings, the vivid details, the stories, everything weaves in and out in the best way possible. I think if anyone wants to buy a good fantasy novel, buy this one. I've put a link to it in the description if you are interested. But he definitely has a way of weaving everything together. Like I said earlier, the world building is impeccable and gives you so many little things, little trails, little feeds of information throughout. He has a way of creating something that feels, honestly, like a fantasy novel I have not read in a very long time. Sometimes I've read fantasy novels and they've fallen into certain traps, and this one avoids those traps beautifully. You can tell John is a very regular reader of fantasy. You can tell his intertwining world of D&D, of tabletop gaming, of brilliant fantasy reading shows through in this. He has a way of creating something that is deep and meaningful, but fast and adventurous, and the writing on that note is cohesive and strong, and it just fits. The writing is this, it's rare. And I said, even in the sort of unfinished proof that I originally read, the writing fits. And he just has a way of weaving things together, creating that cohesive, brilliant world, the construction of text construction, of literary construction. And for context, that is writing style, a very, very posh word for it. His writing style gels with my reading sensibilities. He has a way of just creating something that worked. And I cannot recommend it more than I have. A great writer, a great just voice within fantasy. And I know it sounds like I'm gushing, but I've been sitting on this review for God knows how long at this point. And he just has a way of creating something epic and adventurous and magical in every way possible. A phenomenal writer, a phenomenal new voice. And after reading it, I need to step up my game. Let's be honest, I need to step up my game. I am so happy I read it, and I genuinely wish him all the luck with this book and what's to come and subsequent books, because I will be reading every single one of them. Let's be honest. So I will leave this review here, and I apologize for the gushing, but I've been itching to talk about this for so long. All of my links and info are down below. Like, subscribe, and please hit that little bell icon. That would be fantastic.